you. Um, we're now moving into our next session. We've actually are going to start in about 30 seconds, our next presentation. But before that, for those of you who are just joining us, welcome to the Thursday of SEL Week. Here at SEL 4NJ, we're thrilled to have been able to bring to you 9 webinars and workshops over the course of the last 4 days. This is all in lead up to SEL Day tomorrow. SELday.org is the place to go to sign up for SEL Day if you haven't already. And already the excitement starting in the state. We've just recently heard within the last 24 hours that both the New Jersey State Board of Education has issued a resolution proclaiming tomorrow SEL Day, and Governor Murphy has issued a proclamation as of this morning honoring SEL Day. And there's going on 300 schools that have signed up. So we encourage all of you to sign up if you haven't already and participate tomorrow by sharing an artifact of somehow on the social media platform of your choice. We will be liking and sharing, so just please hashtag SEL Day and tag SEL4NJ, and we will share all the wonderful work you're doing. So with that said, I'm thrilled to move on to our next session, where we will be talking to 2 school counselors, one from Cranford, one from Summit. We'll be talking about social emotional learning in elementary schools, and what does that really look like? So we're just thrilled to welcome our 2 school counselors, and I will turn it over to both of you, to Grace and Andrea, to kind of introduce yourselves and take us on into the next workshop. So with that said, I am going to mute myself, and over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I'll introduce myself and then open up our slideshow. I'm Grace Rivetti, and I'm an elementary school counselor in Cranford Public Schools. I work at 2 schools, 2 elementary schools, one at Avenue School, Livingston Avenue School. One is a K-2 building, and the other is a 3-5 building. And I'll let Andrea introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Sadow, and I'm an elementary school counselor in Summit. I am very happily in one school after being in multiple schools for a number of years. And my school is 1st through 5th grade, and I'm really excited to be here sharing our roles in our SEL learning in Summit. Okay, so there we are. And we want to start this presentation with a question for all of you, because what we have noticed over the years is that many people understand what guidance counselors do, particularly at the middle and high school level, but we are considered school counselors at all levels now. And our question is, how would you, in a quick, brief sentence, how would you describe the role of an elementary school counselor? So if anybody wants to put something in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and unmute yourself, we'd be happy to listen to those responses verbally. But it's a role that we have found that a lot of people don't completely understand. Or we can just move on. That's okay too.
I think we've got somebody who shared in the
there we
chat,
go.
a couple of people. Yeah.
We have Dara says therapist, teacher, cheerleader, coach, parent. Yes. Yes to all of them, for sure.
Another response says trusted support in the building.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, I think I just saw one more. Just about everything under the sun.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. Similar to that first response too. So yeah, thank you everybody for understanding that we wear many, many hats in our buildings.
Okay, so moving on, thank you for responding to that, everyone. I will talk a little bit about what I do in Cranford as an elementary school counselor, and then hands it over to Andrea and she'll share what she does in Summit. So in Cranford Public Schools, there's a strategic plan in place that we have, and in the plan, you can see elements of how important SEL is to the district. It's included in the statement of values as well. So I won't read off the screen, but these are just a few components of the plan. And as you can see, based on these components, it's a district-wide value, and the focus of SEL in the district is what really drives the work that the counselors do, but the staff as a whole as well. So as an overview, this is what SEL mostly looks like in Cranford from my lens. So in my role, I specifically lead classroom lessons, kindness families, which I'll get into in the next slide, individual and small group counseling. I'm also the SEL facilitator in each of my buildings, which I will explain in a couple of slides as well. And I'm also part of our full value sustainability team. And in the district, we also have professional development opportunities as well as family academy nights. One of the nights being specifically about SEL, and I will go over that as well, but just wanted to give everyone an overview first. Okay, so as far as classroom lessons go, the elementary counselors and myself, we're a team of 4. We've developed a SEL curriculum for us to be able to deliver the same content to all of our students across the district in grades K to 5. So with this curriculum, we aim to visit the classrooms at least 4 to 6 times a year to deliver these lessons. And of course, we can always visit additional times depending on student needs, depending on perhaps teacher requests based on what they're seeing in the classroom. Each lesson takes approximately 30 minutes or so, and they all look different. They're all engaging, each appropriate, developmentally appropriate for their grade level. They also follow and meet the NJ SCA mindsets and behaviors, as well as the SEL competencies. So some topics that the lessons cover are emotional regulation, social skills, and feelings, and each lesson builds on the other. At the conclusion of each lesson, each student goes home with a take-home note. So this take-home note is really for the families. So the families are also part of the conversation and can bring SEL into their homes following the lessons. Full value is a framework that we use in Cranford. And there are 6 foundational principles of the full value community. And those principles are be here, be safe, care for self and others, set goals, be honest, let go, and move on. And we use these principles to guide lessons, as well as activities such as kindness families, which I'll get into in a little bit. But it's also just embedded into the climate and culture of the district and our schools. So you might hear our principals talking about these principles during lunch and recess time, or you might hear a teacher mentioning how we can set goals or how we can be safe in the classroom in the beginning of the year when setting up classroom norms. So Kindness Families is a program at my grades 3 to 5 school, Livingston Avenue School. And this is a really unique and special program to this building where all students in the school are grouped into families, and all staff members are also grouped into families. So there's a mix of students in different grades, and they remain in their family for the whole period of time they're at the school. So it's really nice because they're building relationships with each other. Some of them might be friends outside of school. Some of them might be meeting each other for the first time and getting to know each other in this setting. The whole school sort of shuts down, and we have these meetings at the same time. So everyone is doing the same exact thing at the same exact time. I create the lessons and share the lesson plans with all staff members ahead of time, and they have the materials needed for the lesson or activity as well. So each meeting that we have connects to these full value principles. One meeting might be focused on just the principle of be here, and we might do a mindfulness activity. Or another meeting could be about set goals. Typically, we'll do that in January at the start of the year, or perhaps in the beginning of the year in September, talking about setting goals for ourselves. And lastly, counseling. So as I mentioned before, in my role, I deliver individual as well as small group counseling. Individual counseling in my buildings might look like a 15 to 20-minute meeting with an individual student. And in those meetings, we are engaging in conversation as well as SEL activities that are tailored to that student's specific and individual needs. So if a student is struggling with emotional regulation, then the activity that we have in the conversations will be surrounding that topic. As far as small group counseling goes, or lunch bunch as we call it in my schools, those are typically held during lunch and recess, as you can tell by the title, but they might also be during our SEL block in the teacher schedules. And those small groups typically have about 4 to 6 students who might share similar social emotional needs. So for example, I might run a social skills group and have 1 or 2 students from each classroom participate. And again, a big component to the small group counseling is that this is not only delivered to the students, but that the families and parents are also aware of this. And so after each small group counseling session, students will go home with a resource as well as a snapshot of what that session looked like, so that families and parents can continue to reinforce what we discussed and what we learned about in our lunch bunch. So I'm just going to pause here for a second to see if anyone has any questions. Okay. In that case, I am going to just pull up. Oh. All right, bear with me. An example of.
Grace, there's a question. Does the district approach embedding SEL into content areas?
Sorry, Andrea, repeat that again.
Does the district approach embedding SEL into content areas?
Yes, and so through full value, that is something that teachers are encouraged to do, to not just have it be a standalone activity, right? Like we might do during Kindness Families, but to also integrate it into conversations. And even when they're doing a social studies lesson, for example, and they might be having a debate, we could reinforce those principles of maybe let's be honest, or let's care for self and others while we're having this debate, and make sure that we're staying respectful. All right, so before moving on, I just wanted to show an example of what a lesson plan might look like for a classroom lesson. So as you can see here, we have the time of year this lesson would take place, which grade, the ASCA standards. Moving down, the full value principles that the lesson is also hitting, the objective, the materials you need, and a description. And so again, this is a lesson plan that the school counselors are using. Okay. And on this next slide, this is what our map or our curriculum looks like. And it's just a nice way to stay organized. And again, this is shared amongst all the counselors. Here, this is also just a quick snapshot of the full value community and the principles with a more specific description of each principle. All right. We'll also just pause to show an example of my comm room. So as part of the lessons, I try to give students tangible, I'm sorry, resources that they can use during school time, but also at home. So this is something that I post on Google Classroom so that it's quickly and easily accessible to all students. And students really enjoy this. When you click on an image in the comm room, it'll take you to a website where perhaps there's a calming YouTube video or some music playing or a game. And this I made on Google Slides. It takes some time, but it's a good investment. Okay. So lastly, I talked about some SEL initiatives and programming that is led by the school counselors. But there are also a number of ways that SEL is in Cranford that might not be directly led by the counselor, but instead by additional staff members, such as administrators or our district climate and culture coordinator. Or our SEL facilitators. So each building has an SEL facilitator who is typically the school counselor, but can also be a teacher. And the responsibilities of the facilitators are to plan and implement SEL activities and lessons all throughout the year. So for example, October is a big month where we have the Week of Respect, we have Red Ribbon Week, and so SEL facilitators will plan activities and lessons for those weeks and either deliver those activities and lessons or share resources with staff so that they can deliver that information. In addition, SEL facilitators also they also launched the NJ Sky survey. I actually believe that Rutgers is presenting on this in another or in the next session, actually. And so this stands for the New Jersey School Climate Improvement Platform. And the survey was designed to help schools identify their school climate strengths as well as needs and uses data to create action plans. So this has been really helpful in seeing what we're doing really well in as far as SEL goes and some areas of improvement for us and how we can take steps to meet our goals. In addition to working with Rutgers and the school climate improvement platform, we also have also taken on the program of No Place for Hate, which is through the Anti-Defamation League. So through this program, we again plan and create lessons 4 times a year to address topics such as bullying prevention, respect, diversity, and more. In addition to the SEL facilitators, all throughout the year, we also have professional development, and in these professional development opportunities, SEL is also typically a topic. So recently, especially in my buildings, we've been discussing restorative circles. If you're not familiar with restorative circles is a way to give students as well as adults a voice and be partners in conflict resolution. So that it's not just the adults talking to students, but allowing students to talk to students to talk to adults, and vice versa. As I mentioned, throughout the year, we have specific professional development days in district where staff members are getting training on SEL. In addition to that, I mentioned that I'm part of the Full Value Sustainability team and training. So all throughout the year, team members are discussing how we can continue to train other staff members on full value and bring it into our buildings. Recently at the high school, there's a wellness room that was created to again help students as well as staff understand the importance of mental health, but also taking care of yourself socially and emotionally. Finally, a couple of other professional development opportunities. I've created a SEL staff website. So teachers and staff members in my buildings can access the website, and they can access resources so that when they have SEL time in their classroom, they can pull from the website and use resources to create their own lessons. Finally, we have Family Academy in Cranford, which are evenings available to families, and there are a number of topics. A big one, of course, for me is SEL night. And so what that looks like is a parent presentation to start, and we break off into stations, 6 stations. Each station is about a full value principle. So again, we try to connect and tie everything in so that even though there are different names and different parts to SEL in Cranford, it all comes together. So at SEL night, at each station, there are hands-on and engaging activities for the students to do that night, but also to bring home with them so that, again, the conversation continues outside of school. Okay.
Okay, so now it's my turn. And so much of what Grace just said describes a lot of what I do here in Summit. Our districts are very similar in a lot of ways, yet different, because in Summit, we each believe that we have our own unique culture and community in each of our schools. So each building in the district, because of this, we have our own needs, and Summit believes while we all have the same goals, which you'll see here in front of you, SEL can be responsive to the needs of each building, each classroom, and each person. So on our Summit website, our first district goal is stated here, that we will continue to foster an inclusive community that values diversity, promotes equity, and supports mental health, wellness, and social emotional learning within its climate operations, curricula, and programs. When you receive this slideshow, I put some links in here, and down below of this slide is our district SEL spot, which links the public to all of the SEL that happens in the district K through 12. So that's a good resource to check out, and that's available to anybody and everybody. In Summit, SEL has been a district goal for a number of years, and each year it kind of grows and expands to meet the needs of our particular community, to build a comprehensive school counseling program that's focused on SEL. And we believe in proactively teaching SEL to students so that we can have a built-in system of supports in place so that when things do go wrong, students and teachers and families do already have some tools in their toolbox to help support the problem-solving process. And it is, as we all know, a foundation for creating an environment that helps every member of the community feel heard and supported and capable of being successful, both in friendships as well as in their academics. Okay, so what does this look like in Summit? We have different levels of SEL learning, that social emotional learning that happens. The counselors, the elementary counseling team, works together every summer to update specific lessons that are then implemented by teachers. So number one is our Thrive anti-bullying curriculum. And this has actually been in place since 2008, before the New Jersey law went into effect. And we do update this every summer to stay, current and with the times that we need. The second component, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail of that in a moment. The second component is our morning or afternoon meeting time. We know that morning meetings can't always happen as soon as the day begins because of different scheduling conflicts, but we ask teachers to either hold a morning or an afternoon meeting whenever it is best served in their classroom schedule. And what this looks like is a grid of choices that we've created for them to help start conversations. And I'm going to get into that also in a moment. And then finally, we have our grade level SEL curriculum, which has been years in the making. And I worked with teachers to help create specific developmentally appropriate grade level curriculum that builds from kindergarten all the way up to 5th grade. So if we move to the next slide, I can talk a little bit more about each of these things. So first, Thrive. This is our anti-bullying curriculum, and it includes monthly lessons that the teachers teach to their classrooms. I, as a counselor, and all of the other counselors in district do support the teachers when they want or need that support, but it is essentially a lesson that's implemented by a teacher. And we do stress to teachers if they're going to be absent, because there is a Thrive Day every month that teachers are supposed to be teaching these lessons. If they're going to be absent, we ask that they reschedule and do it when they return instead of leaving it in substitute plans, because we want the concepts and the vocabulary and the discussions to be led by teachers and then continue to be led by teachers. And if teachers aren't actively participating in that, then they don't really know what was taught. So we do encourage them to make sure that they are implementing these lessons themselves. And then the goal of our Thrive curriculum is to proactively, like I said before, create an environment where students feel safe in school. And we have a collaborative approach here. We send home a link to all parents after the lessons have been taught so they can see what the topic was. And if you go to our website, you will see that those lessons are all linked to the parents as well as the general public. So you can take a look at what we do. Meeting time, as I said, can be either morning or afternoon. Some teachers, if they have the time, can do both a morning check-in and an afternoon check-in at the end of the day. But teachers are using these meetings to create an inclusive classroom environment. the choices are given to them in a menu, and the topics are listed here. And Grace, if you can take us to our grid for that, please. This is what the grid that teachers receive looks like. And they can, so we encourage them to do both the first and second topics, because those correspond with the beginning of the year,
Okay.
where we want to build relationships and help teach students how to manage conflicts to hopefully be proactive for the rest of the year. So we strongly suggest that they do those lessons in September when we first start. And then in October, as Grace mentioned, we have Red Ribbon Week, and we have the Week of Respect, and we have a lot of things that must happen. So we've embedded those lessons into their meeting time so that that is taken care of, and those conversations happen and can be ongoing in the classroom. And then the rest of these links are, they're all grade level appropriate, and teachers can say, oh, this week I really want to focus on gratitude and kindness, so I'm going to look at what the counselors provided for me and pick and choose what I want to use. Some days teachers use these, and some days teachers say, I want to do something different, and we're fine with all of that. But we provide this resource for them so that they have a guide as to what they can do and how they can specifically have conversations around these topics. Okay, and then finally on this slide, what you see is what I described as our grade level SEL. Again, it was created by me as when I was acting as an SEL facilitator in the district. I had teachers working with me at each grade level to create very specific grade level lessons to cover these topics. So, and to answer, to speak to the question that came to us earlier, these lessons are either embedded or used as part of the literacy curriculum in many of the lessons. So it's extra time, but it's also related to what their literacy unit is covering in that moment. So it helps a little bit to build it all together. So kindergarten through second grade, we focus on recognizing and identifying feelings, and then moving into self-regulation through the zones of regulation. Then we move in first and second grade to specifically the zones of regulation at different levels, culminating in the second graders actually creating teaching materials for the first grade learners so they can better understand zones of regulation. In third grade, we move on to social thinking, which takes a lot of the concepts they've learned at zones of regulation lessons and moves into more perspective taking and social problem solving. And then all of these things kind of then get the students ready for their fourth and fifth grade lessons, which we call Keys to Success. And I just want to give a plug to Maurice Elias's STAT team, that a lot of what we do in our Keys to Success program comes from STAT strategies and tools. So we are teaching students to be respectful listeners and to be able to plan out their thoughts and debates and discussions. And in doing so, we teach students how to be accepting of themselves and others, focusing on self-esteem, identity, and diversity. We talk about empowerment, how to bring positive change and gain confidence to do that. We have a unit on inquiry where we are teaching flexible thinking, which they've been learning all along, but this is the kind of the culmination at the end of their time here. We move into understanding how to transform historical content, things that happened in the past, and how those things are connected and related to things that are happening now in our world and in our society and in our community. And then finally, transcending as mature and responsible, forward-thinking fifth graders that can move on to middle school and be successful. Any questions before I move on to my particular role? And I know that we are short on time. You see there's something in the chat. Got it. Okay. So I'm going to quickly go through this. I'm not going to repeat, Grace, if you can go to the next slide, that would be helpful. Thanks. I'm not going to repeat anything that Grace described because our classroom lessons look very similar. Our individual and group counseling looks similar. Our whole school, I'm going to just quickly talk about peer leaders. I lead groups of 5th graders and sometimes 4th graders, and then we mentor with younger students and other grades to do a lot of great spirit and community building activities and community service activities, all teaching all of the SEL concepts of understanding others' perspectives and empathy and helping others. And then our whole school programs are all based around what I noted when I was in a presentation the other day, that we build everything around our school motto so that everything kind of it looks the same in different environments because we're focusing on what is most important: to give respect, to take responsibility, and to show pride. So we have a positivity chant that takes this into account, that we have students chant before they go out to recess or come into the cafeteria so that they can be their best selves and in that unstructured time. We have PBSIS expectations in the cafeteria that revolve around respect, responsibility, and showing pride. And we also have a very interesting program going on right now with staff, and I'm also going to be piloting it with grade 3 students. It's called Give Thanks. When you get this slideshow, you can link to the Give Thanks webpage. And it's a way for students and staff to notice the things that they're grateful for, to notice the things that when people are following our motto, and thank them for it and show gratitude for those things. So it's a really great program. I'm going to give them a plug because we've really enjoyed working with them. Grace talked a lot about restorative practices already. We use restorative practices a lot. As the counselor in the building, I've also been trained to be a restorative practices trainer. So I'm now training my recess and lunch aides and classroom aides so that they can also lead quick restorative discussions outside at recess and in the cafeteria. We don't have to get into more of that because we're very short on time. Something else that we are doing here for the very first time is a family wellness symposium. It's a district-wide event to bring families, parents to this symposium at night. We're trying this out for the first time, but we've found that family understanding and involvement will help everything improve in the schools also. So we want to teach parents about all of the things that we're facing every day and that we know they may be facing every day, and hopefully come together to work as a team after everybody is trained at this wellness symposium. And I'll let you know how that goes. It'll be our first attempt at that. And I also have a virtual calming space, and we don't have to take the time, but it will be linked in the slideshow that you receive, and you can search around in here. There's read alouds, and there are videos, and there are games and things to do. My favorite is clicking on the polar bear, and it's a video of all different really cute, sweet animals giving people hugs, and it just feels really warm and cozy, and the way that sometimes we need to feel when things are not going our way. I know this was really, really fast, but we wanted to ask you if we have just a moment to see if this presentation changed the way that you might describe the role of an elementary counselor and bringing SEL into our buildings and into the district. If anyone wants to comment on that.
And in the meantime, I will go to the next slide with our contact information if anyone has any follow-up questions.
Yeah, please feel free to reach out to either of us. We know this was a lot of information in a short amount of time, so we're happy to share anything we can.
Aha, I see a
Okay.
comment in the slide from Dr. Elias, which says this presentation reflects so much creativity and best practice and empowerment of staff, students, and parents. Shows the tremendous possibilities open to school counselors for SEL leadership. These presenters must have gone to Rutgers at some point in their careers. Well, I think that says it all. And thank you so much, Grace and Andrea, for sharing your insights and your experiences. And it was fast, but it was great. Really lovely content shared, and we super appreciate it. So thank you so much for being part of our SEL week. And hopefully you'll share some of this tomorrow on SEL Day. So anyway, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.